Will we ever stop? When will anyone get tired of the iPhone 8? Aren't we sick of talking about the same thing? Nope.
Well, because so many of you are asking about it, here's what I think the top 8 most plausible, crazy names are for the next iPhone, because a lot of you keep asking about it. I know for a long time I said, there's no point in talking about what the iPhone's gonna be called, because there's really no leaks or rumors about it until the phone actually comes out. People were theorizing what it's gonna be called even before I think Apple decided what it was gonna be called. So it's ridiculous that I'm doing this, but okay, I'm getting requests. I hear ya, I wanna make what you guys wanna see, so here we go. The most popular one we've seen on the internet, the one that we put in all our video titles, the one that everyone is predicting, and I personally think is gonna be wrong, is iPhone 8. Why would Apple suddenly break the trend? It's been pretty predictable now for the last couple of years. We've had 5, 5S, 6, 6S, 7. Wouldn't it make sense that the next one is 7S? Well, a lot of people are saying that the iPhone 7 was so similar to the iPhone 6 and 6S that it almost really shouldn't count as an upgrade. Build-wise, form factor-wise, people think the iPhone 7 is way too similar. I personally don't. I think it's one of the best upgrades we've had of ever in the iPhone lineup, but hey, if the display is the same size, then nothing's changed, right? So a lot of people are saying that since this time with the next iPhone, we are getting a display change. We are actually getting a noticeable refresh because the display is actually changing. That's the only way to measure upgrades in a phone. This is going to be a bigger deal than a 7S, because typically S just means a speed upgrade, right? It just means internals. This is a lot more than that. It's a different form factor than we've ever had on an iPhone before, and yet the largest display we've ever had. So because Apple is saying this is such a big refresh, they're going to skip the 7S and go straight to the 8. Or perhaps, as I've theorized, there are 3 new iPhones coming out this year, so there will be 2 iPhone 7 looking iPhones that have glass backs that support wireless charging. They have either the A10X chip or the A11 chip, so they are faster, but they're not as good looking as this next generation iPhone with the removed home button. These iPhone 7S's will still have Touch ID, and they'll look pretty similar to an iPhone 7, but be a regular speed, not much physical upgrade. So that's why a lot of people think that the title will be iPhone 8. Now, the second possibility that I think is more likely is iPhone Edition. We've seen this done with the Apple Watch lineup. When we have an Apple Watch that is unique and specific to that year it came out, they call it the Edition. First, it was solid gold Apple Watches. Now it's a ceramic one. We still don't know what the next Apple Watch Edition will be, but I think that the keynote is going to go a lot like this. They're going to introduce the new 7S and 7S Plus and say how great they are, improved cameras, better battery life, wireless charging capabilities, but then Tim Cook will come out on stage and say, but we've got a little bit more for the iPhone this year. And then we'll see that leaked design we've been theorizing about for months now. We're 99.9% sure it is. And since this is a one-of-a-kind branch off from the iPhone lineup, it will be called the Edition because it is special for that year. Now, I think this would make sense because then they don't break up their lineup as it is. 6, 6S, 7, 7S, but then specially, they make the Edition. Apple kind of did this when they designed the iPhone SE. A lot of people don't know out there the SE stands for Special Edition. It was a rare, one-of-a-kind iPhone because it modeled after the iPhone 5, but it had the specs of an iPhone 6S and was a branch off from the iPhone lineup. So they called it the Special Edition. I think it would make sense in their lineup today to call this particular iPhone the iPhone Edition. But of course, I don't think anyone is absolutely sure they are correct because Apple loves to surprise people with names. Before the Apple Watch came out, everyone called it the iWatch. I think Apple even patented that word. So we were all rearing up for it. It's gonna be the iWatch. This year, we're gonna see the iWatch. Then it come out and it's Apple Watch. They've never used the word Apple in their naming scheme before, but they surprised everyone. When we heard that they were designing an ultra-thin, razor-sharp MacBook, we thought that was the new MacBook Air with a Retina display. The Retina display finally coming to the MacBook Air, and then it's called MacBook. Oh, okay, you don't want to call it the Air? All right. We've been hearing about the Siri smart speaker for so long. Siri smart speaker. They're going to build Siri into a smart speaker. It'll be called the Apple smart speaker. HomePod is the name. So it's safe to say that you need to expect the unexpected when it comes to naming. Let's get into option 3. I've seen this comment a lot. iPhone X. A lot of concept artists like that name. Nothing that wrong with it, but I think if you look down into the future, it might get a little confusing if 3 to 4 years down the road, we get to the 10th iPhone. No, it's not the 10th anniversary anniversary, but do you want to call it iPhone 10? Because that might be confusing next to iPhone X and 10. But a lot of people say they should call it X to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the iPhone. They might do that, however, I don't think Apple ever tends to name current year products off of products that came out 10 years ago. They didn't have an Apple II anniversary edition, so it's not in Apple's history to do something like that. However, the iPhone is a product that they have that's like no other, so perhaps they will do something crazy like iPhone X, just to make it sound special and premium. But again, I think it would still make more sense to call it edition. But moving on, let's get into the fourth possibility. This is also a very popular comment I see, and it may not be implemented in this iPhone, but perhaps in future generations. The idea that it'll just be called iPhone, not a subtext, not 8, not edition, not X. It'll just be simply called the 2017 iPhone, or at least that's how we'll refer to it in advertising. And when they unveil it, Apple will just simply call it iPhone. They've done this with the iPad lineup. They've given up on counting. Now it's just the iPad Pro. They don't call it the Pro 2. With the 2017 iPad, they didn't give it an Air 3 title or anything. They just called it iPad. And you could argue that with their MacBook and Mac lineup, they've given up on naming their products for a long time now. So it would sort of make sense that perhaps the iPhone will follow in this trend and simply be called iPhone. And from here on out, we'll just have to refer to the year. I think Apple might have to eventually do that, but while we're under that number of 10, I think it makes sense to give them numbered names just so we know what people are referring to. And it kind of wastes time to have to say the year every instance you want to name the phone. The 2017 iPhone doesn't roll off your tongue as well as the iPhone 8 or iPhone edition. People know what you're referring to, and we're assuming that Apple in the upcoming years is probably going to be releasing 2 to 3 iPhones at a time. So it might get really frustrating if we have to say the 4.7-inch 2018 iPhone. That's a little complicated, but Apple's going to have a continuous problem if in the year 2037, do they want to call it the iPhone 45, or are they just going to stop after, 12? I don't think Apple will be interested in making iPhone 13, iPhone 14, iPhone 15, as in eventually these numbers have to kind of stop. That's why you never heard of OS 11. They liked OS X, OS 10, and they just kept with it. They just did 10.11, 10.12, 10.13. So eventually it might be called iPhone, but for now, I hope it stays with some sort of subtext. The fifth option that was a high-ranked comment in one of my videos is iPhone Pro. This is a little bizarre, but I can kind of see where you're going because we have MacBook Pro, now we have iPad Pro, and at the end of the year, we'll be seeing the iMac Pro. So it seems like Apple is kind of interested in that Pro subtext. However, I'm not sure how just having a larger display, no physical home button, slightly smaller form factor gives you the rank of professional, because I feel like the iPhone is something for everyone. And I feel like in marketing, the term iPhone Pro might be a little bit demeaning if someone's like, I want to buy an iPhone, and they say, would you like the Pro version? And they're like, oh, I don't know smartphones that well. Don't give me the Pro version. I'm just an amateur. It would kind of be bizarre, because I don't think the great thing about this next iPhone that's going to have the OLED display is that it's built for professionals. I think it's really just made for everyone, and it's made to look cool. Plus, in the 2018 iPhone, it's rumored that all 2 or all 3 iPhones coming out next year are going to have the same footprint or edge-to-edge design of this year's special edition. So, next year, will they all be called iPhone Pro? I don't know. I get what you're going for. Apple clearly likes that Pro title, but I don't think it makes sense in the iPhone lineup. But again, Apple has surprised us before, so this is entirely possible. The sixth possibility is something we've seen on a screen protector's company packaging. They wrote right on it, and of course this could just be them naming it for themselves, iPhone Decade Edition. I think that's really complicated, but again, if they have the reported dimensions and CAD files of what this iPhone looks like, could they perhaps know what the name is? I'd be a little bit shocked if a screen protector company figured it out, but hey, they have supplies. They're assembling accessories for this iPhone already. If they do have a foot in the door, perhaps they saw this at the top of the CAD files. That's what it was labeled as. It's a little bit on the nose given the iPhone has been around for a decade. To call it Decade Edition, kind of a mouthful. We might start nicknaming it iPhone DE, which doesn't sound great to me. Really hope it's not Decade Edition, but again, I guess it logically makes sense. So that covers what I think the most popular possibilities are for the next name. For number 7, I'm just trying to see how Apple could surprise us, and I'm trying to guess things that no one else is guessing. Something that could shock everyone, confuse everyone, and throw everyone off. So number 7 is the idea that they will start ditching the letter I in their subtext. Since we have Apple Watch, we have HomePod, we have AirPod. Clearly, Apple doesn't care much about keeping the I in their lineups anymore. So what if they start to incorporate their brand and call it the Apple phone? A lot of people were suspecting they would do this at some point, but hopefully not with this one. I think that would throw everyone off. I hate how complicated the word is Apple phone, but maybe post Steve Jobs era Apple will be really confused and make dumb decisions like this and be like, we need to incorporate our brand into the product and decide to call it Apple Phone, which seems dumb, and I feel like everyone would keep calling it iPhone anyway. Number 8 is probably the craziest idea I have out there. I haven't seen this on any comment. I haven't read this anywhere, but Apple really seems to start to fall in love with this term pod. We started with iPod, developed to EarPod, now AirPod, then HomePod. What if they called it PhonePod? Wouldn't make any sense at all. That's completely stupid. Really hope it's not called that, but I'm just trying to make wild accusations because Apple likes to surprise people with names. Hopefully they don't do anything too shocking in this next lineup. I hope that they choose from the list of names I've given you today, and please don't choose my last two. Apple Phone, yuck, or PhonePod, because you're so in love with that new word pod, Apple. Please, please. And man, will I be impressed if they don't do anything that was on my list today? Because I feel like I've covered it all. I've thought about names like iPhone Air, but it's not really lighter than the last one, so they were kind of ditching the Air subtext in all their other products, so I feel like iPhone Air is a dumb, inaccurate guess, but we'll see, of course. Did I miss a name? Is there any other ideas you have out there? Let me know in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.